Hey there, Aubrey. What's shaking?
I'm great. How are you, Lindsay?
Good, but Aubrey, I have a question for you today. You ready?
Yeah, let's hear it.
So, what kind of exercise do you like to do? What is your favorite way to
Mm.
work out?
Ooh, I love sports, volleyball, pickleball. I really hate
Hmm.
running. A lot of things that most people do for exercise and are probably better for me. I don't love it.
Yeah, me
But sports
too.
I love.
Yeah, sports. I love it when I can take a whole day and everything can be built around that activity. It's the
Yes.
best
Yes, we've
outside.
been playing
Hmm.
here in Idaho a lot of board ball. Have you heard of board ball?
Never heard of
It's
that.
similar to volleyball, but or spike ball. There's a little board on the ground that's maybe 4 by 4, and
Hmm.
someone hits a volleyball toward it, and you play. It's like teams of two, and then they sort of receive it, set to the next person, they hit it down to the board. So it's fun because
Ah,
often for volleyball, if you don't have two full teams, you can't play. This is a
yes.
fun game where you're playing volleyball, but just with 4 people, more like a game. I love it. It's so fun.
That's fun. I think I've seen that being played like on the beach or something
For
before. I don't
sure.
know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
probably. Yeah, very
Love
fun.
it. Great topic today. And I'm curious how it plays into IELTS. But first, guys, go ahead and hit the follow button right here on IELTS Energy Podcast because we publish twice a week and we do bonuses sometimes, Aubrey, that our listeners
Yes.
don't want to miss. Right?
Exactly. So be sure to hit follow right here on IELTS Energy. And
Hmm.
I'm curious to dive in here today. We're talking about exercising because I don't know about you, Lindsay, but I don't think I've ever really talked in Spanish or French about the sports and exercises I do often. It doesn't come up that often in conversations. What
Yeah,
about
it
you? Have
really
you talked about it in Spanish much?
Not really, not really. I feel like what I end up talking about in Spanish is traveling, more traveling, right?
Yes.
Traveling,
Mhm.
languages, maybe food and wine, but
Your
not so
job,
much
maybe. Yeah.
work, daily life, where I live, my
Yep.
family, that kind of thing. Not so much sports. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this very well could come up on IELTS, and you might not have talked about it in English. So it's
Mhm.
vital that you have topic-specific vocabulary and that you're ready to answer questions about sports you like, sports you don't like, sports that are common in your country. You might also be asked about society in general, if we're healthy enough, if people in your country exercise enough, that type of thing. So you
Oh, yeah.
definitely need to practice talking about this.
Exactly, and stay on till the end of the episode. We're gonna do a sample speaking part 2 answer, but the first tip is we want you all to integrate this question into your practice, your speaking practice, right, Aubrey?
Exactly, right? Especially for part two, this could be difficult because if it's something you haven't talked about a lot in English, it's hard to fill 2 minutes. So, we are
Mhm.
going to give you some great vocabulary today, as well as help you sort of see when it comes to exercise, it's not just about running, jogging. There are a lot of things that could count that you could talk about. So,
Mm.
this will be good.
Mhm. I love it. I love it. So let's go through some vocabulary, because again, we're priming our ideas, we're getting those words out to make sure we've got them so we're ready. We're opening our brain boxes when it comes to this this question, right?
Exactly. What types, if I'm asked, what kinds of exercises I like doing, what could I talk about?
Yeah.
And the answer is anything, any kind of
Yeah.
physical activity. The examiner doesn't care. They're not going to be there like, I don't know if I consider that. No, absolutely. Any kind of physical activity you could talk about.
Love it. So, for example, right, kinds of cardio or aerobic exercises would be things that get our heart rate up, right? We can feel our heart rate, our heart kind of going through our chest, and we could feel it really beating. Running, cycling, swimming, rowing, elliptical. What else, Aubrey?
Exactly. And the elliptical is a machine at the gym where you're almost like running. It's a strange machine, but it's really good
It's,
for you, right?
it's
But a
kind
lot
of
of those
weird.
machines at the gym are for cardio. That's just short for cardiovascular activity. You don't have to say all of that on IELTS. It's a bit of a tongue twister. You can just
Yeah.
say cardio.
And that also sounds very familiar and slangy if you just shorten it to
Yeah,
cardio, right?
totally. But also sports, right? If you like to
Yep.
play basketball, volleyball, tennis, any sport you like to play, if you're asked about exercise on IELTS, that all counts.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think most people do have probably have a sport or an activity, physical activity they love. So be honest, and you don't have to come up with some fancy answer. Work off of what's true, and then maybe expand the truth in your answer. Right, Aubrey?
Exactly, right? And then beyond that, it's just giving details. Why do you
Yeah.
enjoy playing? Who do you play with? Where do you
Hmm.
play? If you have to fill 2 minutes, you're going to want to give a lot of details because once you've answered the question about the sport you like, you can say anything, right? Go off on a tangent, tell a story.
Yes, 100%. And then dance is another good one. Zumba is kind of a workout dance, hip hop dance, ballet. I took tango lessons this year. I mean, there's so
Amazing.
many cool ballroom dances that we could learn, right?
Absolutely, right? Bar classes are really popular here in the States, which is sort of
Mhm.
all of the exercises that you do to prepare your body to do ballet. So, something like
Yes.
that. If you love bar classes, be ready to talk about that, yeah, really interesting.
Yeah. And then maybe you're more into, kind of what do we call them? Plyometrics. Is that what the word is? Sort
Oh,
of
yeah.
lunges, push ups, squats, burpees, planks. And then what else, Aubrey?
Exactly. Or yoga, Pilates, right? All of these kind of activities. And you also wouldn't be limited to one. This is interesting to think about too. If you're asked to describe an exercise you like, if
Hmm.
you describe one, then you could share about 5 or 6 other activities you also enjoy doing. So it's
Yeah.
not enough to know how to say one of these things, right? You want lots of good vocabulary to fill that 2 minutes.
Yeah, and I guess we could also think about as we answer that, it's the why do we like that? It's the who do we do it with, right? It's the
Yes.
where, the when, and we
Mhm.
expand out our ideas to fill, excuse me, to fill the 2 minutes. Yeah.
Absolutely, right? And as always, we always recommend for part 2 to tell a story, right? Once you
Hmm.
describe the exercise, share details about it. If you have any kind of a story you can tell about a time
Hmm.
you did it or something that happened, that 2 minutes is going to fly by.
Yes, I love it. And then the last category is weightlifting, as we say, pumping iron. Sorry,
Yes,
my voice is
pumping
off today.
iron.
Yes, that's the 80s way to say it, right, Aubrey?
Exactly, and there's all kinds of specific exercises you could describe. So overhead press, where you're pushing weightlifting over your head. Dumbbell rows, so that's when you have free weights, like the smaller
Yeah.
weights that you might be
Hmm.
doing different, or deadlifts, right? That's where you're standing and you lift, and then you'll hear that loud clank when someone drops the weights.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, this one I do this frequently, many times a week, but for me personally, I wouldn't say I love it. I just do it because I have to. I know that my muscles need that muscle mass, especially in our 40s, our 30s. As women, we need that, right?
Right? It's a necessary evil is a great
Yes.
expression. Use that on your answers. If you don't love to exercise, but you're sharing what you do, say, "This is not my favorite, but it's a necessary evil. I know my body needs it. My muscles and bones need to be stronger. So, yeah, I
Yes.
do free weights." And it would be good to talk about whether you prefer going to a gym or working outside. Do you prefer those free weights, those individual weights, or using the machines, all of the different
Mhm.
machines you find in a gym?
I love it. So good. So we've got a lot of really good vocabulary. So for our listeners, guys, sit down and write out your vocabulary on what words you might use if you were to answer this kind of a question.
Yes, exactly.
All right, Aubrey, we are back from the break. Are we going to get into a sample answer?
Yes, let's do it. I'm going to ask you a part 2 question,
Okay.
and then I will take some notes of the interesting vocabulary you use, give you feedback afterwards. So, Lindsay, or
Okay.
let me get my timer ready. We're going to
All
have
right, I'm
you
ready.
talk for the full 2 minutes. This is really important, you guys, when you are doing this practice for part 2, that you time yourselves because you need to really get a feel for how long 2 minutes feels. And even though the
Mhm.
instructions say you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, you have to speak for that full 2 minutes or your fluency score goes down. So be
Yes.
sure to speak until the examiner stops you for part
All
2.
right. Here we
All
go.
right.
I'm
So,
ready, Aubrey.
Lindsay,
Yes. Yes.
describe a type of exercise that you like to do.
Oh my gosh. This one for me is a no brainer. The exercise that means a lot to me in so many ways and always has is skiing, downhill skiing. So I started skiing when I was 3 years old. I grew up in New England, a cold place. And so my parents put me on skis at age 3 just because, they wanted me in lessons because they wanted to ski, right? That was kind of daycare, was put the kid in ski lessons and then we would meet up in the afternoon as a family. So what skiing meant to me as a kid is it meant family time, right? It meant we're not in front of the TV at home, we're out in the mountain together, the four of us skiing. And so I got quite good at skiing and this really helped me as I became an adult and I met my partner and especially when I met my father-in-law because my father-in-law is a huge skier. He goes heli skiing all over the world, Japan, Iceland, all kinds of places and he's an athlete. And so I think I gained massive credibility with him when he realized I was a good skier. I could ski the bumps with him alongside him. And what skiing means for me now is it's an escape. It's a way to spend time with my family, with my partner. We get out of the house. We get away from phones because frankly, you can't take the phone out when your fingers are freezing on the chairlift. We get out into nature. We spend a full day. We go for a beer after. The whole ritual of the coffee in the morning, getting ready for skiing, maybe staying up in the mountains, then getting out on the mountain, ending early, going to a brewery, driving back to Denver. It's the ritual. So for me, that is, yes, indeed, it's a type of exercise. And especially when I do this exercise in Colorado, my heart is pounding out of my chest as opposed to when I do it in New England because I'm skiing at altitudes of 11,000 plus feet, right? So it's an incredible workout. It torches calories in a way I've never seen in New England, but it also gives me a reason to
Thank
get,
you.
yes.
Ooh, did that feel so long, Lindsay?
It did feel a little long. I could have kept going, but it was
Yes,
like, okay.
you could have spoken forever, but it
Yeah.
is fascinating. If you don't time yourself,
Mm-hmm.
it's really on test day, it will feel long. So often students will stop at about a minute 20, a minute 30, and they're sure they've hit
Yes.
2 minutes because it
Yes.
feels long when you're speaking about one thing. And we're used to back and forth conversations. We're not used to just speaking for 2 minutes like that. So
It
it's
is weird.
foreign.
Yeah.
You have to practice it.
For sure. Yeah. And it's important to know that you don't need to. I mean, how could examiners expect you to cleanly wrap it up and know exactly when you're at 1 minute, 57 seconds? It's impossible.
No.
So
In
it is
fact, it's a
normal.
huge mistake in part
Hmm.
two to start wrapping it up and summarizing when you're not
Hmm.
sure if you're at 2 minutes yet. So it's
Yes.
better to just keep talking, add more detail. You used a really good strategy, Lindsay, when you had kind of said most of the things you could say about it
Yeah.
to then compare skiing in Colorado to New England. And then you had a ton more you could say, right? You're talking about
Yes.
how, like the higher elevations and how that would be different. And
Hmm.
then, yeah, go off on tangents. Then you could tell a story about skiing in New England and how the ritual was
Yeah.
different.
Yep.
So I
Hmm.
want to
For
share
sure.
some amazing vocabulary Lindsay used that you guys should definitely be using on your speaking answers. And the first one, right at the beginning, she said, no brainer. What a great way to start your answer to say,
Yeah.
for me, a no brainer is, and you're just saying, this is the obvious answer for me. Like this was easy, but that's idiomatic language, which is necessary for IELTS.
Yes. Yeah. And it also allows me to start my answer with confidence. Like I'm fully
Yeah.
owning my answer. My answer is obvious to me. So I'm going to plow through. It's going to be an easy answer. That shifts my mentality and makes me feel confident.
Yes, and you don't want to start your answer with the exercise I am going to describe today
Ugh,
is,
boring.
because that's very band 6, right?
Yeah.
We don't speak like that really. You're repeating vocabulary from the topic and you're not using interesting intonation. So instead, start it like Lindsay did, right? Start it in an interesting way, right?
Mhm.
This is a
Mhm.
no brainer for me. I've loved skiing my entire life. And you're using interesting vocabulary and pronunciation from the get go.
And I think also just one other piece, choosing a topic that you feel excited to talk about, right? Don't choose
Yes.
one that you think for some reason the examiner wants you to say. Like if I had chosen weightlifting, my answer would have been much less interesting because I find it awful. I just do it because I have to.
Right.
Right? And I
And you
wouldn't have
could
anything to
say that,
say.
but
Yeah.
then you'd need to pivot to talk about
Yeah.
something else, people
Yes.
who are interested in it or what
Yeah.
you really do
Yeah.
like, right? Because you couldn't talk
Right.
about that for 2 minutes.
Right. So being strategic about what we decide to talk about is
Yes.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. And then a couple other things. The way you started your answer, giving background, giving information, saying I started when I was 3 and how that's interesting. I grew up skiing. It was
Mhm.
family time, all of this background before
Yeah.
she's really even talking about what skiing is like for her now and why she enjoys it, gives you
Yes.
so much interesting detail and vocabulary. And then great intonation when she said, I'm a huge skier, or my father-in-law is a huge skier, that
Mhm.
emphasizing adjectives, adverbs to, vary your intonation. And then I
Mhm.
want to ask you, Lindsay, because I've never heard of heli skiing. And I have
Nope.
a feeling Lynn's listeners out there too are like, what's heli skiing? What's that
You never
mean?
heard of it? Oh, it
No.
means you drop out of a helicopter. You go to places that there are no lifts that serve those mountains because they're God knows
Wow.
how high. They're not like
Mm.
Everest high, but they're higher than your average 11,000, 12,000 feet, right? And then they
Oh,
drop you
wow.
and you ski uncharted terrain, just
Oh, goodness.
powder.
Have you ever done
Yeah.
that? Have you
No,
been
no, I have never
okay.
done that. I don't think
Maybe one day.
yeah,
No?
maybe. I don't know. I'm afraid of avalanche, right?
Oh,
Avalanches, I would
right.
be. So they have to do avalanche training and they have to wear the vests
Mm.
and carry the shovels and everything. Yeah, it's full on,
Very
Aubrey.
dangerous.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I had a feeling I wasn't the only one. I guessed with the heli
Yeah.
context clues, I'm like, maybe
Yeah.
something to do with a helicopter, but
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
never heard
you
of
got
that.
it. I know,
Okay,
very
and
extreme.
then I also wanna share a great phrase when you said, "I gained massive credibility with my father-in-law." This
Mhm.
chunk is it's band 9. I don't think I've ever heard a student say it, and it's so flexible.
Yeah.
So many speaking answers. You can say, if you were able to do something that impressed someone else, or
Mhm.
even, when you graduate from school or you get some experience under your belt, this
Yep.
is a great phrase to say, I gained massive credibility, right? Made you more
Yes.
credible in some way.
Love it. Such a good one. Yeah, that could apply to a lot of different answers. You're right. Life
Yes.
experiences, accomplishments we achieve, right? Love it.
Yes, and that's what you want to be looking for when you are adding vocabulary to your list. You especially want to
Mhm.
listen for phrases that are really flexible, that you could use them in so many different speaking answers,
Mm.
right? So
So smart.
practice your own sample answers using some of these great phrases.
Love it. Love it. So good. Aubrey, what else do we need to know here? I mean, this is it. Is there another episode that our listeners could check out right now?
Yes, if you missed this recent episode, 3 tips to learn vocabulary for IELTS, that was episode 1505. And we
Mhm.
shared the best way to add vocabulary to your notebook and then use it so that it's part of your active vocabulary. So definitely scroll up if you missed that episode.
Yes, and I think the takeaway for today, guys, is practice answering this kind of type 2 part 2 question. Expect to possibly get it. But I love the tip that we came out with at the end. Get vocabulary and phrases that expand across many topics. That is such a pro
Yes.
tip.
Absolutely, right? So that you can definitely use it on test day. There will be some kind of answer where you'll be able to pull
Mhm.
that out of your pocket and boost your scores.
Oh, such a great episode. Thanks for giving a critique of my answer today, Aubrey. And I'll
Of
see you
course.
back here very soon.
Awesome. See you next time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.